Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Indira Ghosh from JNU and today we are going to talk on the module Solvation Effect on MD, that is Molecular Dynamics, under the paper Computational Biology. Our learning objectives are effect of solvation and electrostatics in molecular simulation and modeling. What is very important here to note that any simulation of macromolecules, the most important factors to affect the simulation is electrostatic forces. And because it is electrostatic forces, solvation, how we are handling the solvation effect becomes very important for our calculation of electrostatic forces. Today we are going to discuss about exactly one is electrostatic forces initially and then how we take care of solvation, different mode of solvation. This solvation applications would be mostly referred as water as the biological molecule, which is the most solutions on which the biological functions are done. Treatment of long-range interaction, which is the topics of discussion presently, takes the maximum amount of calculation and the CPU times because it contains the term which is associated with non-bonded terms, and also as it occurs, these non-bonded terms have two parts. One is electrostatics, another is van der Waals forces. As you very aptly understand, that van der Waals forces would have very short range interactions, and initially, as I have shown you earlier plots, where van der Waals dies down, the forces dies down by within maybe 5 angstrom to 8 angstrom. So if I want to take care of all the long range interaction, it turns out that electrostatic interactions are the most difficult ones, and they are pretty slow and they take longer time to really become almost zero or negligible. So in principle, these terms between every pair of calculation would be quite and huge, and that should be O(n) square calculation and complexity. So to speed up the computation, where we are including millions of atoms in interactions, which includes even water molecules, then we should be having a method or predefined some distance cut off so that above the distance those interactions can be ignored. For long range interactions, like mostly which happens to be electrostatic interactions, this takes a long computer time because we cannot use a short cutoff like 5 angstrom or 8 angstrom. Okay, and when it comes to the simulation or molecular dynamics calculations, these particularly the water molecules which are associated nearby in the vicinity of protein atoms, they tend to lose, means they just go between 8 angstrom to 5 angstrom quite frequently. So cutoff is very important, and if it is ignored, we might have some preempt error in our calculation. To calculate long range interaction, precisely as I described, is electrostatics. Should we do it or not? Of course, we require to include the electrostatics. Which are the cases where it might have problems? Number one, it raises a huge amount of computational cost if we do not use a cutoff distance. And most often, if we ignore the electrostatic interaction, we should be justified. That means we should know that really it doesn't play any significant role. However, in some cases, this negligence of the approximation taken for electrostatic cutoff can play a very difficult results and severe approximation, and these are the case study done as I have shown in two papers or in the reference here. Most often it is a case where it is dialectic constants you are calculating, or dialectic constants are important role to play. Another case is if we have ion and protein interactions. In case of DNA and electrolyte solution, that is the metal ions with DNA, also this plays electrostatic long range interaction plays a very important role. Treatment of this long range interaction can be handled in general three different ways. One is just you truncate, just simply set it to 0 after a distance cutoff. So if the interatomic distance is 12 angstrom for that matter, take 12 angstrom interactions, all map them, calculate them rigorously. However, anything more than 12, that is 12.1 angstrom, you just ignore them. This has a drawback, and this can lead a large fluctuation of energy because, as I mentioned earlier, when you are doing molecular dynamic simulation, a water molecule, which is a polar molecule, can actually come near and just go further, and the distance may change by 12.1 to 12.2 or 3. And if you ignore the interaction, suddenly it just disappears and fluctuation may happen. So just sharp truncation is not simple way of doing away with our calculation. We can introduce something called shift or cutoff methods, which is also may reduce this. So what we do is the potential energy surface such that the cutoff distance, the interaction potential is 0. So you use a shift cutoff. So your entire potential surface you calculate, and you use the distance a little bit more to calculate the potential energy. The drawback is the equilibrium distance, what we normally take, maybe are slightly decreased. Calculation does not matter in this shift cutoff system. However, better method would be to do the switching. That is, use a potential to take as usual value for the first cutoff, introduce another cutoff after a while, which will smoothen the 0 between first and second cutoff. So a smooth function is utilized for first cutoff to second cutoff to give a little bit soothing power or switching system, soothing power for in the addition to the electrostatic. Still it suffers from, there might be very strong electrostatic interaction in the switching region. Okay, so it can affect still. None of these methods, as it looks at it, that really takes care of this long range interaction. We will come to how to handle these in long range much later. However, this shortens your calculation period of running CPU, etc. What are the models? How one does? Now, actually to take care of long range interactions should be like, you see, the reproducing the crystalline state of a protein or enzyme. What we use is something called Ewald summation or particle mesh, rather to tell particle mesh Ewald method. And this is a variation of a Ewald method which is given as a references in the bottom. Also, one can take care by using not necessary periodic system to use particle mesh. One can actually use a non-periodic system, which takes care of not the full electrostatic, but includes a multiple expansion method. And these two types of methods will be discussed little detail afterwards, where we are not ignoring just by switching a function or cutoff. I'll first discuss with you the multiple expansion. Multiple expansion is basically the partition of the electrostatic interaction into a long range component and a short range component. What is the short range? Is the Coulombic interaction, which is we are calculating rigorously. However, we can use a multiple approximation. Instead of having the full multiple series as it in electrostatics books you can read, which has been incorporated in CHARM program, and I can give you the show you next slides to demonstrate how it is taken care of. And this can take care of long range interactions. What is the origin of multipole? Multipole is the pole-dipole interaction, quadrupole interaction, etc. How the multiple expansion is done. Now, a electric multiple expansion is a determination of the voltage V due to collection of charge obtained by performing a multiple expansion. This corresponds to charge density, not, please note, it is charge density, not one electrostatic polar point. That is not E1 or E2, it is the charge density. So a charge density in terms of its moment can be normalized by the distance to a point R, which is shown previous slide, actually can have a charge distribution. This density can create a charge distribution which can be explained in CGS unit as it's shown in the bottom. That is 1 by Rn plus 1 and Rn Pn cos theta rho r d3r, where Pn cos theta is a Legendre polynomial and theta is the polar angle between the distance capital R and the point where we are measuring the charge distribution. And cos theta is defined as it's given. So as you see, this is quite a good expression to calculate the multiple expansions. In some cases, it has been actually included so that we don't need to use cutoff and we can get rid of those other problems. However, your calculation is increased. As you see, we have to calculate every place the functions. So CPU time might increase a bit. There are two ways charm electrostatic model can be used. And in some of the charm electrostatic model, fast multiple method can be used. And another is extended electrostatic model, which I'll come to next. However, why should we use it is a good example given by reference number 4. Actually, if you use extended electrostatic model and study the binding of interaction with RNase A with 3 UMP, 3' UMP, enzyme product complex, you would see the long-range electrostatic contribution was a necessary evil for the uridine phosphate and to remain exactly at the active site. Why? The reason is there are plenty of water molecules and the phosphate ion is an ionic molecule. Most often when the electrostatics are calculated not correctly, you may land up getting different results, including the free energy, including your estimation or structure of compounds where it is docked, etc. And this is very good reference for one to note what happens if you really not calculate the electrostatic potential properly. How one does extended electrostatics. This is a little less computation intensive than the previous one. What one does is you use only the near contribution, that is the short range interaction at the active site in the circle, if you look at the circle. And then what you do is every charge inside the circle, the large circle, calculated and distance is calculated by the small circle center. And small circle depicts the multiple approximation. So one can actually do this approximation, take these circle interactions, which will cover maybe, so near contribution is exactly electrostatics and you can use R cutoff or cutoff distances for electrostatics. Extended contribution is used for multiple. And this has been very quickly, and 2 references are given for you how to handle these, but this will quicken your calculations. Many cases when proteins are folded or unfolded, presently people do like to use such a method. I would suggest that you should explore this extended electrostatic method instead of using actual multiple approximation all throughout. And that result would not be very different if you use explicit solvent or exclusively use all the multiple approximation, but separate them. The reason is very physiological. The reason is biological functions happens in presence of water. However, we would like to look at the molecules which is short range and which is long range. And this slide actually talks about that short range interactions are mostly actually strongly influenced at the center where you are calculating your actual energies. However, the long distance interactions can be taken care by using multiple approximation. So, impact of long range electrostatics has been discussed well. So what we noticed is the effect of electrostatics is very prominent, and particularly when you use the explicit solvent like a highly polar water molecule. Also, charged active site, which is contains maybe in some proteins and also mostly the protein DNA interactions. The charged active sites are charged amino acids plays a very important role, and where the electrostatic interaction, long range electrostatic interaction, must be taken care of appropriately. Now, there are two examples here before we go to the solvation. On the left hand side, I show you how one has calculated the SRC kinase, which is a very important protein in target as anti-cancer drug. And this protein, as you see inside the green color, and water molecules are all over, has been taken care 15,000 water molecules. Also, it includes the KCl, that is the potassium ion and chlorine ion together. This system can be actually a system on which we can do the solvation. On the right hand side, I show you another example, and that is a protein which is a helical protein with lipid membranes and the water. Waters are shown as if on the top of the molecules, as you see. Lipids are shown as lines because they are the cholesterol part of it. So that actually shows a leucine serine ion channel. This is an example how a solvation can be done, explicit solvation. However, I will discuss more about two different kind of solvation in next few slides. So, as I explained, that can be explicit solvent molecules as is shown in the previous picture. Also, one can take care by using something like a continuum method. That is, we can treat the solvent as implicit and a complete, continuously continuum solvent, and the effect of it on the solute can actually be measured, approximately calculated. There could be another method, that is hybrid method between two. That is, first solvent sphere can be explicitly handled, whereas the outside the protein or outside the DNA, which is not so influential to the active site, ligand binding, can be used as a continuum model. These treatments are either inner solvent or external shell, can be treated quantum mechanically or classically. Most often we use classical way of solvation, your model of solvent. And the solvent do play most important, as you see in the case of molecular simulation and modeling. Considers the solvent as a, let us say, uniform polarizable medium of fixed dielectric constant. And this is, if we see E or epsilon over there written, and having a solute molecule M, which is placed in a suitable shaped cavity. This is the most important line, that is called creation of this cavity actually cost energy. That means you displace the polarizable medium and make a space. And whereas this dispersion interaction between solute and solvent at the cost of this cavity is stabilized. So we lose the space in the polarizable medium, but there is an interaction between the solute and solvent which is favorable, and then it actually balances. So the electronic charge of the solute M polarizes the medium, inducing charge moments, which also adds to electrostatic destabilization or stabilization. Depends on what type of molecule you are putting the solute you place in the solvent. Now, if we see this, you can explain by the equation. D means your delta of the solvation, then dg solvation or delta solvation should be represented by delta cavity plus delta dispersion or plus delta electrostatics. Now this sign I haven't put anything because it might be favorable or unfavorable. So if we use this concept, the model should be take care of size and shape of the solute cavity. Certainly it matters. I'll show you later. Method of calculating this cavity creation and the dispersion also contributes. However, the most important factor is how the charge distribution of solute M is represented. Is it point-wise or it is a distributed charge? Matters very much because polarizability will affect this particular function. Whether the solute A is described by classically or quantum mechanically. Generally, in our calculation, we use classical concept. However, we try to impose some empirical functions to include the quantum mechanical concept. However, we mostly don't. So, how we describe the dialectic? Is a continuous medium or a partial? I will first give you continuous medium concept, then we will see how we can modify this dialectic medium. Solute cavity size and shape. Now, if we look at the peptide, one small peptide which is shown as chemical formula, and we can assume every peptide molecule in protein, so we can take every side chain as well as a spherical. Then it is called Born approximation. This is the concept of Born. If the solute cavity, instead of having ellipsoid or some other, it's a spherical, one can calculate mathematically or analytically the formula which will be shown next. If we calculate it ellipsoidal, which is Onsaga's concept, yes, actually if you look at, it is more of an elliptical representation of a peptide. But then it complicates and we have to modify that. The third concept introduced by Kirkwood, and which has a very interesting point, that is, instead of calculating the whole molecule itself as a peptide, why don't we calculate the exposed area? And it may not be smooth, it may be little rough surface or exposed surface, and in that case we can have where is the van der Waals touching point, and if we can calculate the area. That will come in the next slide. Solvent accessible surface. That's the concept which I have discussed earlier by Kirkwood. So, can we do that calculation? Rolling a sphere approximately of 1.5 angstrom radius, which is a radius of water, which is the most important biological solvent in our systems. If we use that around the surface of the molecules, which is shown on the right hand side pictures, one can actually get the accessible surface area. And this method, as you see, there will be a molecular surface which is a van der Waals surface, and that depicted with a large small open sphere contained is the solvent accessible surface. As you see, there would be some space left which is called re-entrant surface. So there are two methods to calculate. One is Connolly's method and another is Richard's method, which is very popularly used by bioinformaticians. Connolly's method actually includes the re-entrant as well as the contact surface area. Now one can calculate this, how this surface can be represented. Then we can go to the next level of calculations, and one of the most important effects is screening electrostatic interaction, as I have told you in the first part of my talk. Now, implicitly we can treat the solvent, that means include the dielectric screening constant, electrostatic potential energy term. No water molecule at all are included. And effective dielectric constant can be used. Effective can be, it can be distance dependent. That is, inside protein or DNA, it can have a different value. As it goes out of the center of gyration, you get different values. That is, exposed surface may have a different value of dielectric constant. And that can be utilized. AMBER uses this kind of very simple interaction, which effectively gives you almost the same implicit treatment of results if you use the explicit as well. Now, one important thing to mention here in this, that these models are based on continuum electrostatic theory. Now I will talk about that treatment, how the treatment of solvent comes. Explicit treatment of solvent can be done also, where the epsilon or dielectric constant is an energy function. And a detailed of solvent boundary condition must be imposed so that water molecule should not diffuse away from the protein during the simulation because they are moving. To allow the simulation and calculation in macroscopic properties, we using a limited number of solvent molecules is also a necessity. Otherwise, you have to treat a huge amount of solvent, which we call bulk solvent. So, what is the difference between implicit solvent using and explicit solvent using? Implicit solvent generally cannot be used when you have kinetic study done, even certain extent if you are manipulating or calculating some dynamics property. But if you want to collect trajectory of a simple system, then it is very fast. So implicit solvent can be used. Also, it should be avoided when you have charge system. I'm sure that you understand why I emphasize that you should never use implicit solvent model when you are actually having molecules having charges, whether it is in the active site, maybe the ligand having charges, and also when you are using protein-protein interaction. How we model explicit water? There are three types of explicit water. One is rigid, one is flexible, one is polarizable. All the models now come up with, rigid model is most simple, where you have only two interaction, Coulombic and Lennard-Jones, no other. Flexible model may take care of the polarizability as polarizable model takes care, because oxygen, water can be treated separately, and hydrogen, polarizable hydrogen, and it's free. That important in water is the free electron, which can take any shape. The bottom picture shows there are three models given and three different set of parameters are included. And as you see, one can be simple hydrogen bond type Q0O and QH. Another could be not exactly at the center position of oxygen, but a little bit away. And that is the second model actually depicts that how the electrostatics of oxygen or the water molecule should be depicted. Better model is given at the 4-point model, which is also takes care of the free electron which is in the orbital. So water model normally taken 4-point, sometimes even 5-point models are also taken care, and these are called tip system, which is Bill Jorgensen's contribution to this force field systems. Now, there are two different kind of approximation I would introduce after I talk about the solvent exposed exterior interior. One is called generalized Born approximation, which is understandable if we understand the environment specific distance dependent dyadic model. That means that this GB qualitatively predicts the difference of effective electrostatic potential in protein interior versus solvent exposed exterior. So if we have a many trajectory of a protein structure or DNA structure, it ought to be the number of solvent molecule would change on the exposed areas at least. So how to take care of those are given by generalized Born approximation, and what is shown here is electrostatic potential throughout the whole space is replaced by solvent induced reaction field energy, and which is shown in bottom, which is the depicted as epsilon P and epsilon W. These two are interior and exterior dyadic constant, which gives you the understanding how it is different. Because in the exterior, it might have a much larger, like a bulk water interactions, and interior, because the protein interiors are very much shielded, it might have a different dyadic constant. So this equation gives you a correct approximated values of the generalized Born approximation. But please do remember, this Born approximation takes as if the radius of an atom is a spherical, and the empirical factor, which is called F, is may range from 2 to 10, with 4 being the most commonly used values. When one uses Born approximation or generalized Born method to depict the calculated values of energies, sometimes you are wondered, and I will cite you next slide to say what other methods provide you. Most important to note why we call this as generalized Born, because we assume the protein are content of spherically hard sphere model, and Born approximation is valid as long we consider that. The values, this 2 to 10 or having 4 is the manipulating number, as you see. And one should try out to vary this in case when you have a very flexible protein. These are not discussed much on any other people. These are the tricks of these experiments. Sometimes one uses very fixed value of F and land up getting values which is not tangible with experiments. So my suggestion to students, please do explore this factor F. Now I explain you how we derived the previous equation. Bond model of ion solvation. Approximation for a single charge. So I have shown you earlier the spherical charge in the center. Now, so what is the solvation calculation? Is minus half by 1 minus 1 by external. So Q square by R. So for solvent exposed atoms, you calculate the bond radius, and it will be little larger than atomic radius, but that's fine. And buried atom, you calculate is radius become very large, quite large, and that is calculated by effective bond radius on the. So the macromolecules are considered as a charge inside an arbitrary big cavity. Consider molecules to be more or less spherical. Basic idea of this GB step 2, and that is consider several charges inside an arbitrary cavity. Each one has its own bond radius. You can consider every peptide and center of the peptide to be one like this, or even a side chain like lysines are separately one charge contained spherical surface like that, and you sum up all the values of the pairs, and it's been shown how to calculate the pairs by this equation, and total free energy would be given by that summation, or free energy to create this cavity inside a water molecule would be given by this function. So you can have a larger internuclear distance. That pair terms exactly cancels Coulomb's law of interactions, just I calculated just exactly values over there, or the pair term leads to the correct behavior of this dipole inside a sphere. Now these are GB pair term, that is the bond, generalized bond pair terms calculations. Next calculations are approximation by Poisson-Boltzmann equation. What idea is missing over in generalized bond was that all the proteins are spherical, or you treat a part of the proteins contained as spherical. This is no. Poisson-Boltzmann not necessarily includes that. Treats solvent as a dielectric constant and a continuum dielectric constant. Essentially is exact more within the constant. Okay, so often we treat it to be the very good standard or gold standard when you use implicit solvent model. But one should remember while using Poisson-Boltzmann methods to calculate energy or free energy, one must understand and calculate the solvation effect, that it cannot account for any number of the first shell solvation effect. It is important to note that this related to the size of water molecule. Numerical solution of this continuum is introduced and it uses some approximation. So it is a good continuum approximation, but it's not necessary that it will give you the feelings of all the shell solvation effect. Maybe the first shell, it gives proper exact values. Hence, one must remember, if you are handling a highly electrostatic solvation, one has to be cautionary to use Poisson-Boltzmann in proper way. This explains how is the Poisson part is taken. Here we do not use charge as spherical center charge considered in Born approximation, but here we use the electrostatic potential. So if we can explain by this equation, which is Poisson's equation, electrostatic potential, that is psi r, can be explained with a rho r. Please note, here we have epsilon, psi r, as well as charge density are function of r, that is a distance from the central point. So each of these functions are dependent, as its vector r is dependent on different part of the proteins. Small dielectric constant, you can use some constant epsilon, where you can use a very small value inside and outside can be used at 80, but then you lose that psi epsilon r value for dielectric constant. So normally, please remember, this is a dot product of this function. We talk about the Boltzmann part, that is the Poisson part we have discussed. Now, the treatment of charge density due to the ions in solutions are very well understood by using this Poisson-Boltzmann part. Now, Poisson expression I have given you, and now we approximate, that is, we introduce this function which is shown in red rectangle and used it as a non-linear function. It can be linearized by expanding in Taylor series, as is shown in the bottom. However, we can ignore it by higher values if we linearize it. But if it is a case where you have strong electrostatic potentials, that is ions, and they do change their effect like in DNA structures, one needs to use the approximation, not the linear, but one needs to use few more steps, like you can use our psi r cube function or maybe little higher as well. So this is we introduction of the why the charge density being having a different values, we can make a little bit tilt on it. So low ionic solution, certainly it is a linear, but if you apply, as I said, DNA or RNA, which is maybe non-linear part has to be introduced. So using both Poisson's equation and modifying it using the Boltzmann function, one can actually find out ionic solvents effects as well, very good and very accurately, as been done in the most of the simulation techniques. So there is another way, and one has to find whether we are correctly doing experimental results. So to validate our experimental result, how these functions have been done is using the Debye-Huckel theory of the density function. So ionic density in Bach solution is given by this equation, by Debye-Huckel theory. And if you look at, there is a rho I0, which is the charge density of not movable stuff. However, or the zero position of the ion. However, if I use a 1:1 salt ratio, we can actually make the rho r, that is a charge distribution, as written in the bottom, rho r plus rho minus r, and two functions. And these two functions can actually generate a sine function which was shown in your previous equation. So as you see, the equation what I modified equation of Boltzmann came from Debye-Huckel theory and introduced in that sin h phi r kt form. So to depict this, it has a very strong theory concept introduced in the functions. When we use it as a computer program or a function in computer program, sometimes we forget that this basic principle or the theory is so close to the actual experimental result that we get the accurate values in introducing proper approximation. I will come to now to talk about the dielectric constant. What are they and how their roles are? Internal dielectric constant of a protein. This is the very important thing students should know and must know when you do the simulation or modeling with proteins and DNA or even macromolecules like nonpolar molecules. Experimental data says that nonpolar most organic molecules dielectric constant between 2 to 4, and because its electronic polarizability. Okay, so this is a reasonable estimate of an internal dielectric constant of protein, because protein internally are mostly behave like a nonpolar. So most of the protein core, what we call when the protein folds, the core are interacting with a hydrophobic or a van der Waals interaction between them or stabilizes themselves. However, one must remember there are hydrogen bonds which stabilizes its secondary structures like alpha helix or beta structures, and hydrogen bonds are not non-polar interaction. However, they are pretty directional and they might have good energy. However, this approximation of dielectric constant to be constant inside protein, maybe 2 to 4, is primarily because majority of interactions are non-polar. But sometimes, mainly computational work predicted that pKa of some groups are showed better agreement with experiment if we take a value of internal dielectric such as 20. So this is due to the fact that some buried groups which are forming either hydrogen bond or the peptide itself being a non-polar, they also form hydrogen bond, and there would be some groups like histidine or aspartic acid, etc., which may modify their pKa. because they lie buried inside the protein, but that increases the value to 20. So reasonable guess is a internal dielectric constant of a protein can be considered not so low like 2 or 4, but rather 20. However, these large values may reflect the effect, and there could be two types of effect. One is conformational relaxation. Proteins do not have a fixed structure as we have depicted with many modules talks. Also, their functions are related to this relaxation. Hence, they do change their environment inside as well. And second effect is protonation. Many amino acids which are forming the active site, which is excluded from water, can have protonation difference, and that also influences the dielectric constant. Hence, one thing is to simplify our calculation and less amount of computer time to consume, we can take implicit dielectric constant, implicit solvent, etc. However, we have to be very careful to interpret our results. On the other hand, if we are handling some kind of ionic environment and rest of them as a protein, we better use explicit solvent and as much as possible ignore and keep the dielectric constant. Maybe the dielectric constant can be used with the distance away from the center of proteins. Summary of today, this module actually can be explained that role of electrostatics in ligand binding and has been very exclusively discussed here. Also, that same role, that is role of electrostatics when you use ion channels, how explicitly you should use, has been discussed here too. The importance of such a method is that pKa calculation, that is when one calculates the different pHs in different environment and the localized pK influences the electrostatic interaction, has been discussed too. I have discussed as well the generalized bond and Poisson-Boltzmann, two different methods when you consider the calculation of free energy of solvation. In either of this method is very much highly applicable and gives us quite an accurate estimation of free energy from the trajectory. I would discuss this once more when I show you some of the application of it. Thank you.